The cold air hit his face like a slap as he ran through the narrow stone path. The ground beneath him was wet, covered with thin layers of mud and the morning's leftover dew. Each step made a soft, messy splash as he ran, fast and desperate, like a hunted animal. His breath came out in sharp bursts, his lungs burned, his legs felt like they were carrying stones instead of flesh, but he didn't stop. He didn't dare. Behind him, the world he once knew was crumbling. Ahead of him, nothing was certain. He was running not towards safety, but away from shame. The sky above was a pale, colorless blue. It should have felt peaceful, like the beginning of a calm morning, but to him it felt cruel. The sunlight that spilled across the stone buildings no longer brought warmth. It brought judgment. It followed him everywhere like a spotlight exposing the truth he wished he could hide. The truth they forced onto him. His shoulder stung sharply with every movement. The wound was fresh, the skin was swollen and burning. The symbol they branded into him, hot iron pressed deep into flesh, still felt alive, like fire crawling beneath his skin. Even the cold air couldn't soothe the pain. It throbbed with every step, reminding him again and again, "You are not who you were. You are something else now, something less." He stumbled over a loose stone and nearly fell, catching himself on the wall beside him. The rough surface scraped his palm, opening a fresh cut. He winced but kept moving. Pain no longer surprised him. It belonged to him now. It lived with him. It breathed with him. He turned into another street, a wider one this time, and immediately felt exposed. Here, sunlight poured down without mercy. Here, the world could see him. And they did. Two women carrying baskets stopped walking. Their eyes locked on him. Their expressions tightened, not with fear, not with sympathy, but with that cold curiosity people had when they watched something broken. One whispered something. The other nodded. He didn't need to hear the words. He knew exactly what they were saying. Because he wasn't a man to them anymore. He was a story, a warning, a lesson. His feet slapped against the stones as he forced himself forward. He passed a group of boys playing with small carved figures. Their laughter stopped when they saw him. One of the boys pointed at his shoulder, the mark still red and ugly. Another boy mimicked the sound of a whip cracking. The others laughed. He lowered his head and ran faster. The city around him was alive, vendors shouting, animals pulling carts, people bargaining, children playing, but none of it felt real to him. It felt like a world he had stepped out of, a world he no longer belonged to. He used to walk these streets with pride. He used to greet neighbors. He used to have a name people respected. But ancient Greek society was strict. When someone broke a rule, truly broke it, they didn't just punish the body. They punished the soul. They made sure the whole world watched, ensuring humiliation sank so deep it could never be washed away. Just hours ago, it was him in the center of that circle, him on display, him stripped of dignity. He remembered the cold stone ground beneath his feet. He remembered the tight grip of the guards on his arms. He remembered the crowd, faces stacked on top of faces, staring at him with the hunger of people watching a spectacle. Some were bored, some amused. Some looked eager, as if punishment was entertainment. Very few looked away. But even those few did nothing. The memory hit him with such force that his breath caught. His eyes stung. He could still feel the heat of the branding iron, still hear the sizzle of skin, still remember the voice of the official announcing his crime loudly, letting the sound echo through the square. That was when the people changed. That was when their eyes hardened. That was when he became someone else. The moment the iron touched him, he became the marked one, a person stripped of honor, a person stripped of identity. He kept running. He ran past the marketplace, past the old stone steps, past the wooden stalls, past the lives of people who still belonged here. He reached a quieter street, the kind that twisted like old vines. The buildings were closer here, and the sky looked narrower. The shadows were darker. The sun struggled to reach the ground. Here, at least, he felt less exposed. His legs trembled as he slowed down. His body leaned against the wall, and he closed his eyes, trying to steady his breath. Sweat rolled down his forehead. His chest rose and fell like he had been drowning and had only just reached the surface. He touched his shoulder lightly. The wound pulsed, angry and raw. It wasn't just a symbol burned into his skin. It was a message burned into his life. He opened his eyes and looked at his surroundings. The street was almost empty. A few old crates sat abandoned. A dog slept near a doorway. A thin stream of water trickled along the edge of the path, catching bits of sunlight. For a brief moment, he felt something he hadn't felt since the punishment began. He felt hidden. Not safe, not free, but hidden enough to breathe. His hands shook slightly as he rubbed his arms, trying to chase away the cold. His clothes were dirty, torn, and damp from sweat. The people who passed earlier had looked at him like he was something foul, something cursed, something unworthy of kindness. He whispered to himself, voice trembling, "I am still alive, even if they don't want me to be." His voice cracked at the end, but he swallowed the pain. He had to stay awake. He had to stay alert. He didn't know if guards were following him. He didn't know if someone had recognized him. Ancient Greek laws were not gentle. Once you were punished, society decided whether you were allowed to exist unseen or whether you were hunted again and again. He stared down the length of the dark path. The street fell silent, heavy with tension. His heart slowly began to calm until he heard it. Footsteps, soft, slow, growing louder. A shadow appeared at the far end of the alley. His breath froze in his chest. His heartbeat turned sharp like a drum in panic. His mind raced. Is it a guard? A citizen, someone sent to drag him back, or someone worse? He pushed himself off the wall and stood straight, even though his legs wanted to collapse. Fear squeezed his chest, but he refused to show weakness. Not again. The shadow moved closer, closer, closer. He narrowed his eyes, trying to see through the darkness. Whoever this person was, they were about to change the course of his life.
The footsteps grew louder. In the silence of the narrow alley, each sound echoed like a heartbeat, slow, heavy, unavoidable. The man pressed his back against the cold stone wall, his palms sweating despite the icy air. His body wanted to run, but his legs refused to move. They felt stiff, rooted to the ground by fear itself. A shadow stretched across the uneven stones. tall, thin, moving with calm steps. He held his breath. The world around him seemed to shrink. The air turned tight like the moment before a storm. Then from the darkness a figure appeared. Not a guard, not a group of angry citizens, not someone holding chains or ropes. It was an old man. His hair was long, silver, and tied loosely behind his head. His beard reached his chest, and his robe brushed the ground as he walked. His posture was slightly bent, but his steps were steady and unhurried. His eyes, deep-set and thoughtful, scanned the alley with careful attention before they finally rested on the trembling man. The man's heart pounded harder. Old did not mean harmless. Old did not mean kind. Many old men in the city were quick to judge, quick to condemn, quick to report the marked ones to authorities. Age did not soften cruelty, not in this society. But the old man did not shout. He did not call for guards. He did not curse or frown or look disgusted. He simply looked, calmly, curiously, as if the man standing in front of him was not a criminal, not an outcast, but simply human. The younger man didn't know what to do. His mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. His hands hung stiff by his sides. His legs shook. His body wanted to collapse, but his pride, whatever small piece of it remained, held him up. The silence between them felt heavier than the thickest fog. Finally, the old man spoke. His voice was soft, low, and steady. A voice that carried wisdom but not arrogance. A voice that did not sound threatening. "How long have you been running?" he asked. The younger man stared, confused. He expected questions like, "What crime did you commit? Why are you here? Who are you hiding from?" But the old man's question was different, gentler, more human. He swallowed, his throat tight. He didn't know if he should answer. The old man waited patiently. "I don't know," he finally whispered, his voice rough and weak, the words trembling. "Since the sun came up, maybe longer." The old man nodded slowly, as if this answer made perfect sense. "You should rest," he said simply. "Rest? Rest?" The younger man almost laughed, a broken, painful sound that died in his throat. "Rest! If they find me, if anyone sees me, they'll drag me back. I can't stop. I can't let them." His voice cracked. Memory pulled at him like claws. The crowd, the heat, the pain, the iron. The old man stepped closer, but carefully, like someone approaching a wounded animal. "I saw what happened this morning," he said quietly. The younger man stiffened instantly. Fear burst through him like fire. You saw?" he whispered. "I did." The old man's voice did not change. "I saw the crowd. I saw the branding. I saw the way they looked at you." The younger man felt heat rising to his face, not anger, not shame exactly, but something deeper, something like the feeling of being thrown naked into a cold river. His eyes dropped to the ground. "Then you know why I can't stay here," he said. The old man sighed, a long, tired sigh that sounded like it carried many years of disappointment in the world. "No," he said gently. "I know why you should stay here." The younger man looked up sharply, startled. What kind of madness was this? "Stay? Here? In this alley? With everyone searching for me?" "Yes," the old man said, "because this alley is not what it seems, and neither am I." He lifted his robe slightly and took a slow step forward. The younger man flinched, expecting the old man to reveal a hidden rope or a blade. But instead, he held out an open hand, empty, calm, unthreatening. "I am not your enemy," he said. His tone was steady, as if he were stating a fact. The younger man stared at the hand, unsure. The city outside had taught him to fear every look, every gesture, every whisper. But something in the old man's eyes, something steady and clear, made him stop and think. "What do you want from me?" he asked quietly. "Nothing," the old man said. "Nothing except the truth, and perhaps to give you a place to sit without fear." The younger man swallowed hard. His throat ached, his shoulder burned, his legs trembled, he could barely keep standing. He wanted more than anything to sit, to breathe, to stop running. But trust was a dangerous thing, especially for someone like him. "You should hate me," the younger man said. "Everyone does." The old man smiled sadly. "Not everyone, only those who fear what they do not understand." The younger man blinked. He had never heard someone speak like this, not before his punishment, not before he became the marked one. The old man stepped aside and pointed deeper into the alley, where a small door was hidden behind a broken wooden crate. "My home is there," he said. "If you walk inside, no one will see you. The guards will not find you, but I will not force you." The younger man hesitated. Going with him could mean safety, or betrayal, or something far worse. His mind spun. His heart raced. The old man saw the fear in his eyes and said something that froze the younger man completely. "They stripped you of your dignity today," the old man whispered. "But I saw the truth. You did not deserve what they did to you." The younger man's entire body went still. No one had said that. Not a whisper, not a hint, not a single person had shown even a drop of doubt about his punishment. His eyes widened, his lips parted slightly. He felt a crack inside him, a tiny break in the heavy wall around his heart. How do you know?" he asked. The old man lifted his eyes and looked straight into his soul. "Because I know who really committed the crime," he said. The younger man froze. His breath vanished. The world disappeared. Everything collapsed into silence. "What do you mean?" he whispered, barely able to breathe. The old man's voice lowered. "You were punished for another's deed," he said. "You were branded for someone else's sin." The younger man's hands trembled violently. His knees weakened. His heart felt like it had stopped. He stepped back, shaking his head. No, you're lying," he said, voice breaking. "No one knows that. No one saw." "I did," the old man said, "and I can prove it." The world around them held its breath. The younger man stared at him, eyes wide, fear mixing with hope, dangerous burning hope he tried to silence but couldn't. The old man stepped closer, gently touching the younger man's arm. "But you must come with me," he whispered, "because before I can help you, you must know the truth." The alley seemed to shrink. The silence thickened. The world felt suddenly different. The younger man looked at the hidden door, then at the old man, then at the empty street behind him. Finally, slowly, he nodded and stepped toward the door. His fate shifted with that single step.
The wooden door was so small and so plain that no one walking through the alley would ever notice it. The wood was old, cracked in places, softened by years of rain and sun. A broken crate leaned against it, almost covering it completely. It was the kind of door that did not belong to a home, it belonged to secrets. The younger man hesitated at the threshold. His hand hovered inches above the rough surface. His fingers trembled. His breath came shallow and uneven. Behind him, the open street felt like a mouth ready to swallow him whole. In front of him, this door felt like a throat, narrow, dark, unknown. He didn't know which side was more dangerous. The old man watched him patiently. "You are safe here," he said quietly. Not loudly, not forcefully, just calmly, like a stone speaking to a restless river. But the young man was not a calm river. Inside him, a storm still raged. Fear, shame, confusion, pain. And beneath all that, a question burning like a hidden flame. Could this stranger truly know the truth about what happened? His heart thudded painfully as he pushed the door open. A faint creak echoed off the stone walls, soft, but in the silent alley, it felt like thunder. The interior was dim and cool. Light seeped in through a single narrow window high on the wall, casting long, thin beams onto the floor. Dust danced in those beams like tiny spirits drifting lazily. The smell inside was a mix of herbs, old clay, and faint smoke. The room was small, but warm, not in temperature, in feeling. The younger man stepped inside slowly, like someone entering water for the first time after a long winter. He felt the old man follow, and the door closed softly behind them. Suddenly, the outside world felt distant, blocked by wood and silence. The younger man's shoulders relaxed a little, even though his heart continued to pound hard. The old man walked past him and lit a small oil lamp. The flame flickered to life, stretching shadows across the room. "Sit," the old man said gently, pointing to a woven mat on the floor. The younger man didn't sit immediately. He looked around. There were clay jars on wooden shelves, scrolls tied neatly with string, a few baskets with dried leaves and roots, a simple bed, a wooden table with a stone bowl sitting on top. This was not the home of an ordinary citizen. It looked more like the home of someone who lived between the lines of society, quiet, unnoticed, intentional. Finally, the younger man lowered himself onto the mat. His body let out a small shiver when he sat, half from exhaustion, half from the cold air hitting his wounds. The old man sat across from him, crossing his legs slowly, his joints making soft cracking sounds. For a moment, they just sat in silence. Not awkward silence, the kind of silence that lets two hearts breathe after too much fear. The younger man watched the flame of the oil lamp dance. He felt its warm glow on his face. It reminded him that he was still alive, that his body still had heat, that his heart still beat. Finally, he whispered, "Who are you?" The old man smiled faintly. "A man who has lived long enough to see too many lies." That doesn't answer the question," the younger man said softly. The old man nodded. "You are right. I am called Thales." The younger man blinked. The name was familiar. It belonged to a quiet healer who lived away from the busy streets, a man known by some, but avoided by many. Not because he was feared, but because he remained a mystery. "And you?" Thales asked. The question struck the young man deeply. Who was he now? Not his name, he had one. A name his mother whispered when she held him. A name friends used when they laughed together. A name he once spoke with pride. But that name felt far away now. Burned away. Taken. He hesitated. Finally, he said in a low voice, "My name is Lysander." The old man nodded, repeating the name softly. Lysander. Hearing someone say it, someone who did not spit it with disgust, made Lysander's chest tighten. He felt a lump rise in his throat. Thales leaned forward slightly. You asked why I know what truly happened, and why I say you did not deserve your punishment. Lysander swallowed hard. His fingers tightened into fists. His heart beat faster. Yes, he whispered. Please, tell me. Thales exhaled slowly, as if preparing to lift a heavy stone. This morning, I went to the marketplace to buy herbs. I arrived earlier than usual. That is why I happened to be there. Lysander tensed. He remembered the crowd gathering, the whispers, the way people stared at him before they even knew his supposed crime. I saw a boy running, a young boy, maybe 15, carrying something he had stolen. Lysander froze. His breath stopped. He knew that boy. He had seen him minutes before the guards dragged him away. A flash of movement, a small crash, a scream, then chaos. Thales continued. The boy pushed through the crowd and ran straight into you. You didn't even see him coming. Lysander closed his eyes. He remembered the collision. The boy's shoulder slamming into his chest, the stolen item dropping at his feet. Thales' voice grew softer. The guards arrived a moment later. They did not see the boy. They saw only you, standing over the stolen goods. Lysander felt tears form behind his eyes. His voice cracked. I tried to explain. I tried to tell them. I know, Thales whispered, but they did not listen. Lysander's breathing became uneven. They didn't believe me. They didn't even let me speak. They decided on punishment before I could say anything. Thales nodded sadly. In ancient Greek society, appearance is often stronger than truth. Lysander looked up, eyes shining with pain. Then why didn't you speak? He asked, his voice breaking. Thales lowered his gaze. His eyes filled with something heavy, something that looked like guilt. I tried, he said quietly, but the guards pushed me away. They said the decision was already made. They said they had no time for old men with soft hearts. Lysander's breath hitched. His face twisted with grief. So I was punished for something I didn't do. Thales nodded. Yes. Lysander bowed his head. His hands covered his face. His shoulders shook, slow at first, then harder. Tears slid through his fingers, dripping onto the worn mat below. Thales did not touch him. He did not speak. He simply let the young man cry, the first real cry Lysander had allowed himself since the branding. For minutes, the room filled with soft, broken sounds, pain leaving the body little by little. When Lysander finally lifted his head, his eyes were red, and his voice was weak. What do I do now? He whispered. Thales looked at him with deep sadness. It depends, he said softly. Do you want to disappear, or do you want the truth to be heard? Lysander froze. He looked into Thales' eyes, and for the first time since the punishment, he felt a spark inside him. Not fear, not shame, something else, something alive. Is it possible? Lysander asked quietly. To clear my name? Thales leaned forward. Yes, he said. But the path will be dangerous, and it will reveal things you are not prepared to face. Lysander swallowed. What things? Thales stood slowly and walked to the shelves. From behind a row of clay jars, he he pulled out a small cloth bag. Inside was a piece of broken pottery, sharp, stained with old dirt, and carved with a symbol. Lysander stiffened. He knew that symbol. Everyone in the city feared it. The symbol belonged to a powerful group, a group that controlled markets, guards, and secrets. Thales held the pottery shard gently. "This," he whispered, "was dropped by the boy who committed the crime, and it changes everything." Lysander
Stared at the shard. His chest tightened, his breathing grew shallow. Because if that symbol was involved, his punishment was not a mistake. It was a message, a warning, a buried truth, and he was caught inside it.
The shard of pottery burned cold in Lysander's hands, even though it was only a piece of broken clay. Its edges dug faintly into his palms. He stared at it, eyes wide, heart racing. The symbol carved into it seemed to shift in the flickering lamplight, as if alive, as if warning him that the world he thought he knew was gone forever. This proves I didn't do it?" he asked, voice trembling. Thales nodded slowly. "Yes and no. It proves you were blamed, yes, but it also proves someone wanted you to take the fall. Someone with power. Someone who does not forgive mistakes or weakness." Lysander felt a cold shiver crawl up his spine. "But who? Why me? I was just me." "You were visible," Thales said quietly, almost whispering. "In the wrong place, at the wrong time. And the world does not care for the innocent, only for appearances, fear, and control." Lysander's hands shook. He clenched the shard tightly. I can't go back. Not after what happened. The shame, the branding." His voice broke. He pressed his palms against his face, as if trying to erase the memory of every pair of eyes that had stared at him with disgust and satisfaction. Thales leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. His face was grave. "You do not need to go back. You need to move forward. But forward is dangerous, Lysander. The path to truth is not kind. It demands strength and cunning, and sometimes—" He paused, letting the word linger in the air. "Sacrifice." Lysander's stomach twisted. "Sacrifice? What do you mean?" Thales gestured to the shard in Lysander's hands. "That symbol belongs to the circle of shadows. They have their fingers in every part of the city. Guards, merchants, even the judges. They control the flow of truth, and they mark anyone who stands against them. If they find you searching for justice, they will come for you." A cold weight pressed against Lysander's chest. He thought of the guards' hands on his shoulders, the sneers, the whispers, the sunlight that had turned into a spotlight of shame. His mind raced. Could he face them? Could he fight against forces so hidden, so powerful? Thales stood and walked to a wooden chest in the corner of the room. He pulled out a small satchel and handed it to Lysander. "Take this. It will help you. Herbs for pain, for sleep, for courage. You will need all three." Lysander accepted the bag, feeling its weight. It felt heavier than it should, loaded not just with content, but with responsibility. "Where do I start?" Lysander asked quietly. Thales exhaled deeply. "Start with the boy. Find him. He is the key. He carries more than the stolen item. He carries the first piece of truth. But be careful. He is clever, and he is afraid. And fear can make even the strongest boy do terrible things." Lysander's mind flashed to the boy's face, the flash of panic, the eyes darting in every direction, the small hands gripping the stolen item like it was a lifeline. He had been afraid, just like him. "And the circle of shadows? If they see me talking to the boy?" he faltered. Thales placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then you will hide. You will watch.
You will move like smoke through the streets. You will learn the shadows, not fight them head-on. If you are clever, you will survive. If you are reckless, you will be swallowed. Lysander nodded slowly. He could feel the weight of his destiny pressing on him. The fire of anger was rising in his chest, but beneath it was a flicker of fear. Fear had kept him alive so far. Fear would guide him now. The room outside seemed quieter than ever. Even the sound of the lamp's flame flickering against the walls was a soft whisper compared to the storm in his heart. You should rest tonight, Lysander. Tomorrow we begin. Lysander lay on the mat, staring at the shadows stretching across the ceiling. Each shadow seemed to move with its own life, shifting like memories that would not rest. He tried to sleep. He tried to breathe, but the images of the crowd, the branding, the boy, and the shard kept circling in his mind. Hours passed. He dozed. He woke. He dreamed. In the dream, the city streets twisted like a maze. Faces merged into one another. Guards turned into merchants, merchants into strangers, strangers into specters of his shame. He ran. He ran through the streets, his feet barely touching the ground. Every step echoed in his mind like thunder. Then he saw the boy. The boy pointed to a narrow alley. "This way," he called, trembling. "Hurry!" Lysander followed, but the streets began to close in, the walls narrowing, the sunlight fading. The alley led to a door, the very door that Thales had hidden him behind. But when he reached for it, it vanished. He fell. The city dissolved around him. Lysander woke with a gasp. His body was slick with sweat, his heart racing. He looked around the small room. Thales was asleep on a nearby mat, breathing quietly. Lysander sat up, gripping the shard tightly. "I can't be afraid. I won't." He began planning. Tomorrow he would find the boy. Tomorrow he would begin the hunt for truth. Tomorrow he would step back into the city that had branded him, humiliated him, and tried to break him. But even as he planned, fear whispered in the shadows. "They are everywhere. You are alone. They are watching." Lysander swallowed the lump of fear in his throat. He tightened his fist around the shard. He would not let the past define him. He would not let shame control him. The sun rose slowly over the city, spilling light over the stone rooftops, over the twisting streets, over the crowds who knew nothing of the silent war brewing in their midst. And in that quiet morning, Lysander made a promise. He would find the truth. He would expose the lies, and he would reclaim himself. But the path ahead was dangerous. Every step could lead to discovery. Every shadow could hide an enemy. Every word could betray him. And the circle of shadows would not wait. They would not forgive. He had no choice but to move forward.
The city never slept. Not truly. Even when the marketplace emptied and the clatter of carts and merchants faded, a deeper rhythm pulsed through the streets. The whispers of deals, threats, and secrets. Lysander moved through it like a shadow, his cloak pulled tight around him, hood low over his eyes. Every step was calculated, every glance over his shoulder deliberate. The sun had barely crested the horizon when he reached the alley Thales had mentioned. Narrow and twisting, it smelled of damp stone and smoke, the faint aroma of charred wood lingering from some forgotten fire. Lysander paused at the entrance, his heart hammering. He could hear the city breathing behind him, the faint footsteps of guards in the distance, and a soft, almost imperceptible sound, the shuffle of a small, frightened body. "There," Lysander whispered to himself, spotting a shadow moving along the far wall. The boy. The boy's eyes widened when he noticed Lysander, and for a moment, fear froze him in place. His small hands clutched something close to his chest, a bundle wrapped in tattered cloth. Lysander crouched low, slow and careful, trying to make himself look less threatening. I didn't mean," the boy began, his voice quivering. "You're safe. I'm not here to hurt you. I need your help." The boy's gaze darted down the alley, toward the twisting corridors that could lead anywhere. "Help? You? After everything? They?" "They?" Lysander asked, crouching lower, meeting the boy's wide, terrified eyes. "The circle of shadows. I know. I've been hunted. I've been branded. I know what they do to people. But you hold the first piece of the truth. That's why I need you. Will you trust me?" The boy hesitated, glancing down at the bundle he held. If I show you, they'll know. They'll come for me." "They'll know anyway," Lysander said, his voice soft but firm. "But alone, you're nothing to them. With me, we can survive. We can fight back. But we must move. Now." After a tense pause, the boy slowly extended the bundle toward Lysander. Inside, wrapped in dirty cloth, was a small carved idol. It was delicate, almost fragile, with intricate markings etched into its surface. Lysander's breath caught. The symbol matched the one on the shard he held, proof of the circle's reach, proof of the lies that had destroyed his life. "This," Lysander whispered, turning the idol in his hands, "this is what they wanted me blamed for?" The boy nodded, tears streaming down his face. They said if I didn't hand it over, I'd be punished. My family, my mother." His voice broke. I didn't want to." Lysander's chest ached. The boy's fear mirrored his own, years of terror and humiliation compressed into a single moment. "It's all right," he said gently. "You're brave, braver than most. They can't take that from you." Suddenly, a sound echoed from the far end of the alley, a soft, deliberate footstep. Lysander's blood froze. He motioned for the boy to move closer, pressing himself against the cold stone wall. Shadows stretched long and thin in the early morning light, and from the corner, a figure emerged. A guard, tall, armored, eyes sharp and cruel. The kind of man who enjoyed the smell of fear like wine. "Who's there?" the guard barked, stepping into the alley. The metal of his armor clinked softly as he moved, each step measured and threatening. Lysander's mind raced. He could fight, he could run, but neither would guarantee the boy's safety or his own. Then he noticed the loose bricks along the wall. With a sudden desperate push, he grabbed the boy's hand and ducked through the narrow gap. The brick shifted, giving way to a small hidden tunnel that ran beneath the buildings. The guard's shout echoed above them, angry and confused. "Get them!" The tunnel was dark, musty, and tight. Lysander pressed the boy close, guiding him through the twists and turns. Every heartbeat felt deafening, every scrape of stone against their skin like a scream. The city above was alive, oblivious to the silent fugitives moving beneath its streets. After what felt like hours, the tunnel opened into a forgotten cellar. Dust hung in the air like smoke, and the faint scent of rot mixed with the remnants of old wine barrels. Lysander set the boy down gently. "We're safe, for now," he whispered, though even he knew it was temporary. The boy collapsed on the ground, clutching his knees. "I thought they'd catch us." "They nearly did," Lysander admitted. "But we have what they want hidden in plain sight. And now, we have the advantage. But we must be careful. Every step from here on can be our last if we're not smart." The boy looked up, eyes wide, hope flickering through his fear. What do we do now?" Lysander sat across from him, resting his elbows on his knees. He studied the idol carefully, tracing the carved symbols with his fingers. "This symbol," he murmured, tracing one intricate curve. "It's not just a mark of ownership, it's a warning, a signal to anyone who might think of opposing them. They want fear, they want obedience, and they will destroy anyone who challenges it." The boy shivered. "Then what do we do? How do we stop them?" Lysander's gaze hardened, determination cutting through the fatigue. "We expose them, one secret at a time, one lie at a time. They think they're untouchable, but every empire has a weak point.
and every tyrant has a shadow. He looked at the boy, seeing not just fear, but the spark of courage igniting. The same spark he had once buried deep within himself after the branding, the humiliation, and the loss. Tomorrow, they would step back into the city. Tomorrow, their journey would truly begin. And though the path was dangerous, though the circle would watch and wait, Lysander knew one thing with certainty. They could not hide forever. They would fight, and they would reclaim what was stolen. The shadows of the alley closed around them, silent and protective, as if the city itself were holding its breath.
Dawn broke slowly over the city, painting the rooftops in shades of orange and gold. From above, the streets looked calm, ordinary, almost safe. But Lysander knew better. Beneath that serene surface, the city thrummed with secrets, lies, and unseen eyes. He and the boy emerged from the hidden cellar, stepping carefully into a narrow back street. The air smelled of bread baking, of smoke, of animals stirring awake. The boy clutched the idol tightly, his small hands white against the worn cloth wrapping. "Stay close," Lysander whispered, pulling the hood of his cloak over his face, "and do not speak unless I tell you. The moment someone notices you, we are in danger." The boy nodded, swallowing his fear. Even as the sun warmed his back, a chill ran down his spine. Every shadow seemed alive, every figure on the street potentially an enemy in disguise. They moved cautiously toward the marketplace, a sprawling chaos of stalls, merchants, and buyers. Normally, this would be a place of noise and color, of bargaining and laughter. Today, it felt different. The market was alive with whispers, hidden messages carried on the wind, conversations cut short when strangers approached, eyes darting nervously from face to face. "This is the market of whispers," Lysander murmured, his voice low. "Information flows here like water, but it's dangerous. People speak, but only to those they trust or those they fear." The boy's eyes widened. "How do we find what we're looking for?" "You listen, you watch, you wait." They moved along the alleys that fed into the main square, staying in the shadows. A merchant hawked spices, his voice loud and brash, but Lysander noticed how his eyes shifted repeatedly toward a man in a dark cloak, speaking in hushed tones with another figure. A pickpocket darted between legs unnoticed, a grin playing across his face as he lifted a coin purse. Every movement was a story, every glance a secret message. Lysander stopped near a fruit stall, pretending to examine apples. The boy fidgeted beside him, nervous and tense. Lysander's eyes scanned the crowd, locking on to a woman in a red scarf. Her hands danced subtly, passing small scraps of parchment to those who approached her. Her movements were precise, controlled, practiced. She was a messenger, a courier of secrets. "There," Lysander whispered, "that woman. She knows the city. She knows the circle of shadows. We need her." The boy looked uncertain. "But how do we talk to her?" "You don't just walk up and ask. That's how people disappear. We earn a moment, a chance to be seen, but not noticed." They followed her from a distance as she weaved through the crowd. Every so often, she would press a parchment into someone's hand, whisper a word, and vanish into the mass of people again. Lysander's mind raced. They needed her, but they couldn't approach directly. They had to be clever. They had to be invisible. Then, as if fate itself was watching, a merchant's cart tipped over nearby, spilling sacks of grain into the street. People rushed to help or simply gawked. Lysander saw his chance. He nudged the boy forward, weaving through the chaos to approach the woman. "Excuse me," he said softly, careful not to startle her. The woman turned sharply, eyes narrowing. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice steady but suspicious. Lysander held up his hands. "I'm looking for information. I know the circle of shadows. I know what they do, and I need to stop them." Her eyes flicked to the boy and then back to him. Bold words, dangerous words. She studied him carefully, as if measuring every heartbeat, every flicker of intent. "Do you understand what you're asking? One wrong move and you vanish forever." "I understand," Lysander said firmly, "and I'm willing to risk it. I've lost too much already to turn back now." For a long moment she said nothing. Then, slowly, she nodded. "Follow me, and do exactly as I say. Do not speak. Do not ask questions. Move when I tell you to move. The city watches everything, and the circle, they see more than you think." She led them through narrow side streets into a hidden courtyard behind a bakery. The walls were high, covered with vines and soot, the air scented with bread and faint herbs. A single lantern burned in the corner, casting a warm, trembling light. "Here," she said, "is where truth is exchanged for truth. If you want to find the circle, you must first learn the city's secrets. Every alley, every merchant, every whisper carries a piece, and only when you gather enough can you strike." The boy trembled. "But how do we know who to trust?" The woman gave a thin smile. "Trust is a luxury. Here we trade in information, not loyalty. You watch, you listen, and you survive. That is enough." Hours passed in silence. Lysander and the boy observed, memorizing patterns, noting faces, and listening to the coded messages exchanged in hushed tones. Every piece of information was a thread, and slowly a pattern began to form in Lysander's mind. The circle's movements, their targets, the rituals they conducted, it was all connected, a web of fear and control. By nightfall, they had learned more than they had in weeks on their own, but the price of knowledge weighed heavily. The boy's eyes were red from fear and exhaustion, and Lysander felt the old, familiar ache of weariness pressing into his bones. Yet for the first time in years, hope glimmered through the darkness. "The city speaks, and now we understand its language. Tomorrow we follow the thread to its source, and then," he looked at the boy, determination fierce in his eyes, "then we fight." Outside, the moon rose high, silvering the rooftops. The city that had always seemed indifferent now held secrets that could become weapons. And in the hidden corners, in the market of whispers, the first steps of rebellion quietly took shape. The boy curled up in the shadows, exhausted but no longer entirely afraid. Lysander sat beside him, eyes fixed on the lantern's glow, tracing the paths they would take, the dangers they would face. Every whisper had a meaning, every glance a warning, every shadow a secret.
Tomorrow, they would step deeper into the city's heart. Tomorrow, the circle of shadows would feel the first stirrings of their defiance. The night held its breath, and in that silence, the city seemed to listen.
The first light of dawn crept over the city, casting a pale glow on the rooftops and streets. The market of whispers had quieted, leaving behind only echoes of the secrets traded the night before. Lysander tightened his cloak, the idol wrapped safely against his chest, and looked at the boy beside him. "This is it," he said softly. "Today we end it. Today we face the circle." The boy nodded, though his small hands shook. Fear clung to him like a second skin, but beneath it, there was courage, new, raw, and untested. The street seemed emptier than usual, but Lysander knew better. Every corner could hide an enemy. Every shadow could be a spy. He led the boy through narrow alleys, using the knowledge they had gathered from the market of whispers. Faces passed them, blurred and unaware, but Lysander's eyes caught the subtle signals, the way a hand twitched, the tilt of a head, a glance too sharp. The city itself seemed alive, warning them, guiding them. Finally, they reached the entrance to a grand, ancient building, the center of the circle of shadows. Its doors were massive, carved with symbols that pulsed faintly under the early sun. The air was thick with tension, almost electric. Lysander turned to the boy. "Stay close. Remember everything I taught you. We are shadows now. Move silently. Speak only if I tell you to speak." They stepped inside. Darkness swallowed them, but their eyes adjusted quickly. The room was enormous, lined with towering columns and draped with heavy black banners. A faint, cold wind seemed to whisper through the hall. At the center stood the circle. Figures cloaked in dark robes, their faces hidden behind masks that made them look like carved stone. One stepped forward, taller than the rest. His voice was low, chilling. "I wondered when the whispers would reach us. You have been clever, Lysander, but cleverness alone will not save you." Lysander swallowed the fear that threatened to rise. "I am not here to be clever. I am here to end your reign of fear." A murmur passed through the circle. It was not anger, but surprise. No one had spoken to them like that in years. The tall figure moved closer. "And who was this?" he asked, his eyes narrowing on the boy. "Your apprentice? Your weakness?" Lysander stepped protectively in front of the boy. "He is not a weakness. He is my reason, and he will stand beside me, because together we are stronger than you imagine." The circle laughed, a cold, echoing sound that bounced off the stone walls. "We have seen many who thought they were strong. All have fallen. You will fall too." Lysander clenched his fists, feeling the weight of every loss, every betrayal, every moment of fear that had brought him here. He felt the city around him, the hidden streets, the whispers, the people who had unknowingly guided him. And in that moment, he knew that he was not alone. "You have taken enough," Lysander said, his voice steady, full of power he hadn't known he possessed. "You have stolen lives, broken spirits, and silenced hope. But that ends today." He moved suddenly, faster than the circle expected. The boy followed Lysander, mimicking his movements perfectly. They darted between the columns, striking the first two members with quick, precise blows. Chaos erupted. The circle's laughter turned into shouts and the clashing of weapons. Lysander's mind worked quickly. Every lesson from the market of whispers, every secret path, every hidden corner of the city flashed through his mind. They had learned how the circle operated, how they communicated, how they relied on fear to control. And now Lysander used it against them. The fight was brutal but swift. The boy moved with a surprising grace, guided by Lysander's calm instructions. Together, they became shadows, disappearing and reappearing, striking from unexpected angles. The circle tried to regroup, but they were unprepared. Fear spread among them, fear they had never faced. Finally, it was just Lysander and the tall figure. The man raised his hands, summoning a dark energy that crackled in the air. "You cannot defeat me," he roared. "You already have," Lysander said quietly. With a sudden movement, he struck, using the idol as a focus. A burst of light erupted, illuminating the hall, pushing back the darkness and breaking the circle's hold over the city. The tall figure fell to his knees, defeated, the power that had seemed invincible crumbling around him. The remaining members of the circle scattered, their masks and robes falling away, revealing frightened, ordinary faces. The city had witnessed the collapse of a tyranny it had long feared.
Lysander dropped to his knees, exhausted. The boy ran to him, tears in his eyes, relief flooding his small frame. "We did it," he whispered. Lysander nodded, holding him close. "Yes, we did, but remember, the fight is never really over. We protect what we love. We protect the city. That is the true battle." Outside, the sun rose fully, bathing the streets in light. It no longer felt harsh or judgmental. Instead, it felt warm, hopeful, promising a new beginning. People began to emerge from hiding, cautious at first, then with growing courage, seeing that the circle's power had truly ended. The market of whispers slowly filled with life again, this time not with fear, but with cautious optimism. Secrets were still exchanged, but now they could be tools for protection, for justice, for truth. Lysander and the boy walked through the streets, side by side. The city had changed, and so had they. The boy looked up at Lysander, his eyes wide but shining. "Do you think we can ever forget what happened?" he asked softly. "No," I replied. "We remember, so we never allow it to happen again. But we also live, so we can see the good that still exists. Fear has lost its grip, and that is the greatest victory." They reached the edge of the city, overlooking the rooftops that had once felt so confining. For the first time, the boy smiled fully, a smile not shadowed by fear or doubt. Lysander felt hope bloom inside him, fragile but real. The city behind them was alive again, full of people who would now have the courage to whisper truth, to fight, to dream. And for the first time in years, Lysander felt peace. The shadows had been conquered, the city had been freed, and though the road ahead would be long, uncertain, and filled with new challenges, Lysander knew one truth above all: together they could face anything. The wind carried their laughter, soft and bright, through the streets. And as the sun climbed higher, the city felt like home once more, no longer a place of fear, but a place of hope, courage, and light.